The secretive dealings of the Queen and the world's biggest businesses are today revealed in an explosive leak of confidential financial documents dubbed the Paradise Papers. The 13.4 million files expose the ways that the rich and powerful are protecting their wealth using a web of offshore accounts. The release, the world's second biggest data leak after last year's Panama Papers, includes allegations that the Queen's private estate secretly invested £10 million of her cash in tax havens. The duchy, which was set up in 1399 to generate a financial return from the reigning monarch, used offshore private equity funds in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda that shield UK investors from paying US tax on their holdings. Substantial amounts of money were invested in companies including Brighthouse, which has come under fire for exploiting vulnerable customers. Large sums were also been plowed into off-license chain threshers which went bust owing £17.5 million in UK tax. Meanwhile, Tory donor Lord Ashcroft is accused of remaining anonymous and channeling his income through a tax haven in a bid to pay as little as possible to the British government. The leaked documents show he was domiciled for tax purposes in Belize at a time when it was widely believed he had given up the status. Separately, Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary Wilbur L. Ross Jr. is also revealed to have a stake in a firm that deals with Russians who are under U.S. sanctions. Among the more bizarre revelations is that U2 frontman Bono used a company based in Malta to invest in a Lithuanian shopping center. The explosive details have come from the company registries of 19 tax havens and has been obtained by the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung and investigated by 100 media organizations across the world. Just weeks ago, offshore law firm Appleby, which is at the center of the scandal, revealed its data center in Bermuda had been compromised in a cyber attack. The breach is thought to have been the precursor to today's enormous leak which implicates influential figures from across the world. Questions have been raised over who controls Everton FC after the complex offshore dealings of two billionaires were laid bare in the documents. Last year, Iranian businessman Farhad Moshiri sold his 15% stake in Arsenal FC to Russian oligarch Alisher Usmanov and used the money to buy a 50% stake in the Merseyside club. But secret documents leaked to the press suggest his original stake in Arsenal was funded by a gift from Mr. Usmanov, raising questions as to whether the Russians' money is now in Everton. There is no suggestion that those named in the documents have done anything illegal. However, it will pile pressure on leading politicians including British Prime Minister Theresa May, who has strongly spoken out against tax avoidance in the past. Today's revelations are only the beginning of the scandal, with more figures set to be named during the coming week as more documents are released. The world's top financial institutions are still reeling from last year's enormous Panama Papers data leak revealed how Vladimir Putin's inner circle and a dirty dozen list of world leaders were using offshore tax havens to hide their wealth. A host of celebrities, sports stars, British politicians and the global rich were implicated in that release. The 11 million files contained more data than the amount stolen by former CIA contractor Edward Snowden in 2013. Documents were leaked from one of the world's most secretive companies, Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca, showing how the company allegedly helped clients launder money, dodge sanctions and evade tax. Megastars Jackie Chan and Lionel Messi were among the big names accused of using Mossack Fonseca to invest their millions offshore. The Panama Papers also revealed that the £26 million stolen during the Brink's-Mat robbery in 1983 may have been channeled into an offshore company set up by the controversial law firm. Meanwhile, Egypt's former President Hosni Mubarak, Libya's former leader Colonel Gaddafi, Syria's President Bashar al-Assad and Chinese President Xi Jinping were among those alleged to have links to tax havens through families and associates. Today's leaks center around a law firm named Appleby, which has offices in infamous offshore tax havens including the British Virgin Islands and Bermuda. It provided the structures that helped the world's rich and powerful to legally reduce their tax bills. But unlike Mossack Fonseca, which was discredited in last year's Panama Papers investigation, it presents itself as a legitimate magic circle provider of offshore services. The firm said, Appleby has recently received inquiries from the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and a number of media organizations who are partners of the ICIJ. These inquiries have arisen from documents that journalists claim to have seen and involve allegations made against our business and the business conducted by some of our clients. We take any allegation of wrongdoing, implicit or otherwise, extremely seriously. Appleby operates in highly regulated jurisdictions, and like all professional organizations in our regions, we are subject to frequent regulatory checks, and we are committed to achieving the high standards set by our regulators. We are also committed to the highest standards of client service and confidentiality. It is what we stand for. This commitment is unequivocal. Appleby has thoroughly and vigorously investigated the allegations, and we are satisfied that there is no evidence of any wrongdoing either on the part of ourselves or our clients. We refute any allegations that may suggest otherwise, and we would be happy to cooperate fully with any legitimate and authorized investigation of the allegations by the appropriate and relevant authorities. We are an offshore law firm that advises clients on legitimate and lawful ways to conduct their business. We do not tolerate illegal behavior. It is true that we are not infallible. Where we find that mistakes have happened, we act quickly to put things right, and we make the necessary notifications to the relevant authorities. Having researched the ICIJ's allegations, we believe they are unfounded and based on a lack of understanding of the legitimate and lawful structures used in the offshore sector. The Paradise Papers are already sparking reactions from politicians who have branded the leak deeply worrying. Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell told the BBC, "Despite all the government's claims of cracking down on tax dodgers, this evidence confirms that tax avoidance is clearly continuing on an industrial scale. Either the Prime Minister or the Chancellor needs to explain how the scandalous behavior has been allowed to go on unaddressed for so long, and what action is to be taken now." One of the key figures named in the Paradise Papers is the Queen, who has around £10 million of her private cash invested in overseas accounts. Substantial amounts of money from the Duchy of Lancaster, which pays the Queen and handles her estates, have been invested through funds in companies such as Brighthouse, which has recently come under fire for exploitation of vulnerable customers. The Duchy says it was unaware of its stake in Brighthouse, while large sums have also been ploughed into off-license chain threshers, which went bust owing £17.5 million in UK tax. Brighthouse has been accused of overcharging customers and hard-selling to people with learning disabilities. It recently had to pay back £14.8 million in compensation to a quarter of 250,000 people, despite no tax advantages being gained by investing her money offshore. The news is likely to fuel arguments that greater controls need to be placed on royal spending. Founded in the 13th century, the Duchy is a unique portfolio of land, property and assets held in trust for the sovereign. These range from office blocks in the Strand to holidays homes, Bolingbroke Castle and a swath of the tidal mudflats in Lincolnshire. They are not entitled to touch the capital of the estate, but profits from the property empire go into the privy purse, providing a private source of income for the monarch. The Queen is entitled to spend the money as she wishes, but also uses it to help support members of her family, including Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, Princess Anne and the Countess of Wessex. In lieu of their official duties as members of the royal family, are no longer entitled to civil list payments. She voluntarily pays income tax on the revenue she receives. The Chief Finance Officer of the £500 million estate, Chris Adcock, told the BBC, "Our investment strategy is based on advice and recommendation from our investment consultants and appropriate asset allocation. The Duchy has only invested in highly regarded private equity funds following a strong recommendation from our investment consultants." A spokesperson for the Duchy of Lancaster added, "We operate a number of investments, and a few of these are with overseas funds. All of our investments are fully audited and legitimate." The Queen voluntarily pays tax on any income she receives from the Duchy. The Paradise Papers also reveal that U2 frontman Bono used a company based in Malta to invest in a Lithuanian shopping centre. The singer bought a share of Nude Estates, which went on to purchase the Offshore Mall shortly after it opened in 2007. 5 years later the business was transferred to a company in Guernsey called Nude Estates 1. Bono's spokeswoman told The Guardian, "Bono was a passive, minority investor in Nude Estates Malta Limited, a company that was legally registered in Malta until it was voluntarily wound up in 2015. Malta is a well-established holding company jurisdiction within the EU," a UK government spokeswoman said. Since 2010, the government has secured an additional £160 billion, more than the annual UK NHS budget, for our vital public services by tackling tax avoidance, evasion and non-compliance. This includes more than £2.8 billion from those trying to hide money abroad to avoid paying what they owe. There are 26,000 HMRC staff tackling tax avoidance and evasion, and we have provided an extra £800 million to fund their efforts. A fair tax system is a critical and key part of our plan to build a fairer society, and we are clear that everyone must pay what is due, at the right time. In a statement to Mail Online, the government of Bermuda said that much of the narrative concerns foreign nationals in other jurisdictions. A spokesman said, "The government takes these matters extremely seriously and is reviewing developments with all parties concerned, including the relevant international authorities." Bermuda consistently ranks as a global leader in tax and transparency, with tax treaties with over 100 governments. The Premier of Bermuda, David Burt, added, "We maintain high vigilance on any and all criminal activities, including cyber, as well as requiring leading standards on tax and transparency of all who do business here. We will not tolerate non-compliance in any of these areas, and are reviewing this incident and related matters, and will take any further action as required."